did you see the latest Nintendo newsletter?
Whoa, nice graphics. I'd like to get my hands on that game.
You mean you haven't played it yet? We can play it on my Nintendo Entertainment System. It's The Legend of Zelda, and it's really rad. Those creatures from Ganon are pretty bad. Octoroks, Tektites, Levers too. But with your help, our hero pulls through. Yeah, go Link, yeah, get Zelda.
Awesome.
Intense.
The Nintendo Entertainment System. Your parents help you hook it up. The Legend of Zelda sold separately.
Oh, dearie me. The Legend of Zelda, the start to a classic and well-loved series from many. Not that the advert done it any favours, mind you. It's pretty cringy going back to watch it, let's be honest here. But I suppose every game series needs to start somewhere. So here we are, The Legend of Zelda for the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Released in November of 1986 for the NES, developed and published by Nintendo, this game is the brainchild of the legend Shigeru Miyamoto. Sorry if I absolutely murdered that. He came up with the idea for this game when he remembered himself as a young child exploring forests, caves and hillsides in his hometown. He took these memories and decided to turn it into what we know as now, The Legend of Zelda. The players at the time when this game released were probably still playing Super Mario Bros, but the production for Zelda started way before they even began to think about Mario. The game begins with that now iconic piece of music. The screen begins to flicker, and when the music comes to its climax, you're greeted with a bit of a backstory. The land of Hyrule is in turmoil by Ganon, the Prince of Darkness. Ganon, helped by his minions, have stolen the Triforce of Power and also tried to steal the Triforce of Wisdom from Princess Zelda, but instead she broke the Triforce up into 8 pieces and scattered them across the land of Hyrule. Seeing as Ganon failed to obtain this piece, he got his minions to kidnap Princess Zelda instead, so now it's up to Link to gather the pieces of the Triforce, save Princess Zelda, and bring Ganon's reign of terror to an end and bring peace back to Hyrule. You are dropped into a section of the map and now your quest begins. You'll see an open passageway on the wall, so of course you want to explore. So you go in and find your sword. Now equipped with the proper gear, it's time to bring peace back to the land of Hyrule. Here's your introduction on how the controls work, and it's as basic as you'd expect an NES game to be. D-pad for movement, and the A button to use your sword. The B button is for side weapons. You can equip the side weapon by pressing start and using the D-pad to highlight a weapon, and then back out and it'll be assigned to the B button. Easy as that. You play the game from an overhead perspective so the player can see everything on the screen. While navigating around Hyrule, it may hit you very fast. You have no idea what you should be doing or where you should be going. There is a square box on the screen that's basically your map. Not highly detailed, but if you have the map that was included with the game, it will give you a rough idea where you are in the land of Hyrule. Personally, I never used any sort of guide or map to try and make the experience as authentic as possible. You will eventually come across people hidden away in dungeons and some shops that will give you hints and tips with what you should be doing. Some are helpful, like where to get special sword upgrades, but other can be completely random and also cryptic at times. What the hell? While exploring the overworld of Hyrule, you'll come across some of the easier enemies in the game. They cleverly teach the player early that enemies in red take less hits, but soon they introduce the same enemy types, but in the colour blue, which the player will soon find out takes double the damage of a red enemy. A bit of clever design there, and they use this throughout the game so the player is aware of what enemies take more hits. The game is somewhat non-linear in the order you can defeat dungeons. Some you can do before others, but some require a specific item, so you could be halfway through a dungeon and hit a roadblock because you don't have that required item. Speaking of dungeons, there is a total of 9 dungeons across Hyrule that the player must beat to finish the game. For me personally, the first 4 dungeons are a walk in the park, but once you get to the 5th it seems like they crank the difficulty up big time. The formula for the dungeons are pretty simple. You enter a dungeon, sometimes faced with branching paths. You choose how to tackle the dungeons. They introduce puzzle elements into the dungeons, and I use the word puzzle very loosely. Most of the time it consists of clearing a room full of enemies, and there could be a door that's still locked. All you have to do is maybe move a block or bomb a wall, and then you progress. Nothing really busts your brain in this, which I liked with the later games in the series, but it's the first game in the Zelda franchise, so you can't really complain much. It is nice to see that they set the foundation for later games to come from day one with this title. In every dungeon there is a map and compass to find, so you can see on the screen where you are on the map, and where the final boss is. Much more detailed than the map for the overworld for Hyrule. Some map designs are very questionable though. Look at this one. Does it not look like something else just at a different angle? I'll let you use your mind to figure that one out. And what about this one? Looks like E.T. from the Atari game. Each dungeon also has keys to collect to get through locked doors. You can carry keys from one dungeon to another, but be very careful. You don't want to be doing multiple dungeons at the same time because you might find yourself hitting a roadblock because you've run out of keys. If you do run out of keys, you'll have to visit one of them shops and buy one. And they ain't cheap. And with rupees, the currency you use in the game to buy items, they're very rare to come by sometimes, so you don't want to be wasting them. There are a few shops scattered across Hyrule, some in plain sight and others hidden, so you might have to either bomb a wall or burn a bush to gain access. There are a number of items you can buy from these shops, which include potions, magic shields, bombs, etc. Every dungeon has an end boss, nothing ever too challenging but enough to keep you going. Once the boss for that dungeon is defeated, you'll be granted with a heart piece, giving you more life to take hits, and a piece of the Triforce. Gathering pieces of the Triforce is essential for getting to the last dungeon. It's a great feeling defeating a dungeon and knowing you're one step closer with how hard the later dungeons are. The feeling of progression is brilliant, knowing that you have overcome the odds at times, but sometimes progression feels impossible. I got to dungeon 8 and just couldn't progress any further. I'd previously cleared the rooms to the left and right, but the one in front caused too much stress for me. Bloody dark nuts, both kinds, red and blue. If they weren't hard enough to deal with, there's also stone statues in each corner of the room throwing fire projectiles at you. You have to attack dark nuts from the side or back, while dealing with the projectiles too was just a pain in the arse. They weren't like most enemies where you could remember their patterns and movements. These dark nuts just move completely random. Also, with so much shit going on, the game starts to slow down because there's too much stuff going on. Check out the slowdown. I suppose it's expected with a game this old that pushed the NES to its boundaries back then, but it's too difficult to deal with everything that's going on. See, my main problem is when you die in a dungeon. Fair enough, you start at the beginning of the dungeon, but you're only given 3 heart pieces. This is a serious problem for me. I thought I could just farm outside the dungeon for heart pieces, so I kept going in and out, trying to respawn enemies to kill for useful items, but it took too long. I was too far away from the fairy fountain where you can get full health for free, and it was also too far away to go to a potion shop to buy health potions for when I was running low, and even if there was one nearby, I didn't have enough rupees to buy any. I had also already had my magic shield stolen by one of these fat bastards, so I was already at my wit's end because I couldn't farm enough rupees to get one back. So, I done something I feel ashamed of. With the difficulty ramping up high and how tight they are with health and rupee drops, I had no choice.
Yup, that's right.
I turned my NES Classic off and downloaded an emulator to use cheats. Look, I know it's terrible, but I had to finish this. It wasn't like I was stuck because I knew where I should be going, but it all came down to restarting the dungeon with only 3 heart pieces. That really slows down the pace for me. On the plus side, it was good going back and kicking the crap out of enemies that previously gave me a lot of bother. Take that, you whiz-roll bastards. Even though I cheated, I still didn't have a clue what I was doing in the last dungeon. I found it too cryptic with all the hidden passageways and with how big the layout is for this dungeon. I couldn't imagine doing this with only 3 heart pieces because literally every enemy you have previously came across is all crammed into this last dungeon. After eventually finding Ganon, it was time for the final battle in the game. He randomly throws fire projectiles at you and you have to try and guess where he will be next and hit him with the sword. Once you have hit him enough times, he turns red. Now it's time to use the magic arrow to dish out the final blow. Once defeated, go into the next room and save the princess and finally bring peace back to Hyrule. The music in this game is... Don't get me wrong, I love that opening theme. It's absolutely brilliant and very iconic. It's like Mario, even if you haven't played the games, you're bound to have heard that song at some point in your life. It's not that I don't like the music in this, it's the fact that you'll be hearing the same two songs over and over and over again. It's a shame really, because the overworld theme for Hyrule does a good job of capturing your attention and gives you this feeling as if you're going on a real quest and exploring. As annoying as it gets hearing it a lot, it does feel good to hear it once again after eventually finishing a dungeon, and it gives me the feeling that I had just overcome the odds and accomplished something. As for the dungeon theme, it's the same song for every dungeon apart from the last one. It's a dark sounding song, giving the player a feeling of fear and captures the mystique of the dungeon, leaving you wondering what's to come on the next screen. It just repeats itself in a loop. Really got on my nerves when I was getting the shit kicked out of me and had to keep restarting the dungeon. It was as if it was laughing at me half the time. I wasn't much of a fan of the last dungeon's themes. I don't know if it was just because I was at my wit's end with the game or not, but it just didn't do much for me. With there mainly only being 3 songs in this game, it didn't leave me with much material to work with, so I decided to also use some songs from other Zelda games. So if you heard a song that seemed out of place in this video, that's why. This is without a doubt a great game, but the difficulty level and crypticness from some of the people you come across can be off-putting for new players. I remember my first time playing this when I got it in a double pack when I got my GameCube along with Mario Kart Double Dash. It included the Zelda Collector's Edition, which had this on it, and I had no idea what I was doing then, and I felt I had no idea what I was doing now at an older age. Yeah, I felt bad that I had to cheat towards the end, but to be fair, even when I got to the last dungeon in Death Mountain with cheats on, I still had no idea where I was going or what to do, and can you imagine getting closer to the end of that dungeon to only die, be sent back to the start with only 3 hearts and expect to get to where you originally died? Forget about it. It did sell well when it was first released. It was the first NES title to sell over 1 million copies and still ranks highly in game charts. It was also the first game to use a battery backup saving so you can save the game and continue where you left off previously. This was a game changer back then. This title can be thanked for many other games of its kind to come after.
So, here we are. I'm over the moon that I finally completed this game, but I do feel terrible that I had to cheat. But the difficulty towards the end of it's just cranked up way too high for me, and I just don't have the tolerance for that type of shit these days, and I wanted to be as honest with my viewers as possible. I'm not going to lie and pretend that I completed this without using cheats, that's just ridiculous. Would I recommend this to other players? Yeah, probably, but really only if you want to see where the original Zelda franchise started. That was my video on The Legend of Zelda. If you liked it, please subscribe to my channel to be kept up to date with future content I upload, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.